My ex-boyfriend once told me that I would never do better than him. He said it while packing his bags, while I sat on the edge of our bed holding a positive pregnancy test I never got the chance to show him. He walked out the door, and the last thing he said was, "You'll spend the rest of your life regretting this." He didn't mean the breakup. He meant me. He meant that I was the thing worth regretting, that I was the mistake. For 5 years, I carried those words like stones in my chest. For 5 years, I rebuilt my life one broken piece at a time, while he paraded around town with a new woman on his arm every few months, making sure I knew exactly how well he was doing without me. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that healing was enough, that being a good mother was enough, that one day the weight of his words would stop pressing down on my lungs. But on a Saturday afternoon in October, standing on the front steps of a mansion I had never seen before, his new wife opened the door and said something that made every single one of those 5 years worth it. My name is Naomi Ashford. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse at a community hospital 40 minutes outside the city. I spend my days holding the hands of sick children, calming terrified parents, and pulling 14-hour shifts that leave me too exhausted to do anything but collapse on my couch when I get home. It doesn't pay much, but it matters. Every single day it matters. But to my ex-boyfriend Marcus Hale, my life was small. My ambitions were small. Everything about me was small. And he made sure I never forgot it. Marcus and I met 8 years ago at a friend's birthday party. He was magnetic, tall, confident, always the loudest person in the room. He had the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person who existed. He worked in commercial real estate, or at least that's what he told everyone. In reality, he was an associate at a mid-level firm, handling paperwork and cold calls while dreaming of closing million-dollar deals. But the way he talked, you'd think he owned half the city. I fell for him fast, too fast. He was charming and attentive in the beginning, always showing up with flowers, always texting me good morning, always making me feel like I had won some kind of lottery by being with him. We moved in together after a year, and for a while things were good. Not perfect, but good. The cracks started showing in our second year. Marcus was obsessed with image. He cared about what people thought of him more than he cared about what was real. He bought clothes he couldn't afford. He leased a car that ate half his paycheck. He turned down dinner invitations from my friends because he said they were boring, which was his way of saying they weren't rich enough to be seen with. And slowly, without me realizing it, he started reshaping me too. He'd look at my scrubs when I came home from a shift and say, "You could do better than wiping noses for a living, Naomi." He'd scroll through Instagram showing me pictures of women in designer outfits and penthouse apartments and ask, "Don't you want more than this?" He made me feel like my life, a life I had built with purpose, was something to be ashamed of. I stayed because I loved him. I stayed because I thought love meant enduring. I stayed because every time I thought about leaving, he'd pull me back in with a moment of tenderness that reminded me of the man I fell for at that birthday party. But those moments got rarer, and the criticism got louder, and by the time I found out I was pregnant, I already knew something was broken between us. I never got to tell him about the baby. The night I planned to share the news, I came home early from a shift and found his phone on the kitchen counter, open to a thread of messages with a woman named Kendall. The messages were explicit. They were romantic. And the worst part, they weren't new. The timestamps stretched back 4 months. He had been seeing her the entire time I was falling asleep alone, waiting for him to come home from late meetings. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He didn't even flinch. He sat on the arm of the couch and looked at me like I was overreacting. "Naomi, come on. You know what this is. We've been stuck in the same place for 2 years. You work at a hospital making barely enough to cover rent. I need someone who matches my ambition. Kendall gets it. She's going places." I stood there holding a secret inside me that he would never deserve to know, and I let him walk out. He packed 2 suitcases, took his cologne and his ego, and left me standing in a half-empty apartment with a pregnancy test hidden in my pocket and a heart that felt like it had been put through a paper shredder. He moved in with Kendall within a week. 3 weeks later, I miscarried. I went through it alone, I called in sick to work and lay on my bathroom floor for 2 days. My best friend Clara came over when I finally answered my phone, and she held me while I cried until I had nothing left. Marcus never knew. He still doesn't. And he never will. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. I moved to a smaller apartment. I picked up extra shifts. I cried in supply closets and parking lots and shower stalls. But I kept going. I kept showing up for my patients. I kept putting one foot in front of the other. And slowly, painfully, I started to rebuild. About a year after the breakup, something unexpected happened. My hospital launched a pilot program for pediatric telehealth in rural communities, and my supervisor asked me to help develop the training curriculum. I threw myself into it. I worked nights and weekends, writing protocols, designing modules, consulting with tech developers. It turned out I had a talent for bridging the gap between medicine and technology, something I never knew about myself, because Marcus had spent 3 years convincing me I was nothing more than a bedside nurse. The program exploded. Within 8 months, 3 other hospital systems wanted to license it. A healthcare startup approached me about partnering to scale the platform nationally. I said yes, and within 2 years, my little telehealth project had become a company. A real company, with investors and employees and contracts worth more than anything Marcus had ever touched in his entire career. I kept it quiet, not because I was hiding, but because I didn't care about proving anything to anyone. I still wore my scrubs. I still drove my used Honda. I still lived in my same small apartment because it was close to the hospital, and I liked my neighbors. The money went into the company, into expanding access, into hiring nurses in communities that had never had pediatric care before. That was the point. That was always the point. Marcus, meanwhile, was doing what Marcus always did, performing. I heard about him through mutual friends, the ones he hadn't deemed too boring to keep in touch with. He had married Kendall a year after leaving me. They had a big wedding at a vineyard, and he posted photos online for weeks afterward. Then he started posting about his new venture in luxury real estate, his empire, his grind. He bought a car he definitely couldn't afford and rented an office with a view he definitely didn't need. And then, 5 years after he walked out of my life, I received a text message from him, out of nowhere, like a ghost walking through a wall. "Hey, Naomi. Long time. I know things ended rough between us, and I've grown a lot since then. I'd love for you to come see the new place. I think it would be good for both of us to see where life has taken us. Saturday at 2? He included an address. I looked it up. It was a mansion in Briarwood Estates, the most expensive neighborhood in the county. 6 bedrooms, a pool, a 3-car garage, listed at $4.2 million. I stared at that message for a long time. Clara told me not to go. She said it was a trap, that he just wanted to rub his success in my face. She was right about that. But something in me needed to see this through. Not for revenge, not for validation. I just needed to close a door I had left open for too long. I texted back, "Sure, I'll be there at 2. Saturday came. I drove to Briarwood Estates in my Honda, wearing jeans, a sweater, and the same old jacket I'd had since nursing school. The neighborhood was ridiculous. Every house looked like it belonged on the cover of a magazine. Manicured lawns, stone fountains, iron gates, the kind of place where people measured their worth by square footage. I pulled up to the address Marcus had sent. The house was stunning. White stone, tall columns, a circular driveway with a fountain in the center. His leased Mercedes was parked out front. Of course it was. I walked up the stone path to the front door. My heart was beating faster than I wanted it to. Not because I was nervous to see him, but because I knew exactly why he had invited me. He wanted me to feel small. He wanted me to walk through that door and be overwhelmed by everything he had, and I didn't. He wanted to prove that he was right all along, that I should have been more, wanted more, been someone worthy of him. I rang the doorbell. I heard footsteps inside. The door opened. It wasn't Marcus. A woman stood in the doorway. She was tall, blonde, and dressed in an oversized sweater and leggings. Her eyes were red and swollen, like she had been crying recently, but was trying to hide it. She looked at me with a mixture of confusion and exhaustion. Can I help you? I'm Naomi, I said. Marcus invited me. He told me to come by at 2. Her expression shifted. Something flickered in her eyes. Not anger exactly, more like recognition, like she had been waiting for this moment without knowing it. You're Naomi, she said quietly. The nurse. That's me. She let out a long breath and leaned against the door frame. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said the words that changed everything. I'm Kendall, I'm his wife, and I need you to know something before he comes downstairs. She paused and looked me straight in the eyes. This house isn't his, it's mine. It was mine before I ever met him. My late father built this home. It's in my name, always has been, always will be. Marcus doesn't own a single brick of it. I stood there on the front steps, letting her words settle over me like cold water. He told you it was his, didn't he? She said. It wasn't really a question. He tells everyone it's his. He posts photos from the driveway like he bought it with his own money. He invited you here to show off, to make you feel like you missed out. I know because he's done it before. You're not the first ex he's brought to this door. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Kendall crossed her arms and kept going, her voice steady but raw. He hasn't closed a deal in 14 months, Naomi. His luxury real estate empire is a one-room office with no clients. He leases that car with money I give him. He buys suits on credit cards that are maxed out. Everything, every single thing he shows the world is mine, or it's borrowed, or it's a lie. From somewhere inside the house, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, confident footsteps. Marcus appeared behind Kendall in the foyer, wearing a tailored shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a gold watch on his wrist. He was grinning. That same magnetic, self-assured grin I remembered from the birthday party 8 years ago. Naomi, he said, spreading his arms wide. Welcome to the castle. You like what you see? This is what ambition looks like, baby. He hadn't heard what Kendall had said. He had no idea. Kendall turned to face him. Her expression was calm, eerily calm, the kind of calm that comes right before a storm. Marcus, she said, sit down. His grin faltered. What? I said sit down. He looked at me, then at her, then back at me. Something shifted behind his eyes. The performance was slipping, and he could feel it. Kendall didn't wait for him to sit. I called my lawyer this morning. I'm filing for divorce. And before you start, let me save you the trouble of lying. I found the messages. All of them. The woman from the gym. The one from the restaurant opening last month. The one you told me was a business contact. I have screenshots of every single conversation. Marcus's face went white. The grin was gone. The swagger was gone. He looked like a man watching his house of cards collapse in real time, which was ironic because the house he was standing in had never been his to begin with. Kendall, baby, wait, he started. I'm not finished, she said. Her voice was steady as iron. You brought your ex-girlfriend to my house, Marcus. My house. My father's house. You brought her here to humiliate her with something you didn't earn, something you didn't build, something you have no right to claim. And that's when I realized you haven't changed. You didn't grow. You just found someone else to leech off of after Naomi was smart enough to let you go. She turned back to me. Her eyes were glistening, but she wasn't crying. She was done crying. Naomi, I'm sorry you wasted your time today, and I'm sorry for whatever he put you through before me. I should have listened to the signs. I looked at her, this woman I had spent years resenting without ever knowing her, this woman I had imagined as my replacement, my upgrade, the proof that I wasn't enough. And standing there in that doorway, I didn't see an enemy. I saw a mirror. You don't owe me an apology, I said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. Marcus found his voice, smaller now, stripped of its usual shine. Naomi, come on, this isn't what it looks like. Kendall is being dramatic. I just wanted to catch up, to show you that things are going well. Things aren't going well, Marcus, Kendall said without turning around. They never were. You just got very good at pretending. I looked at him, standing in a foyer he didn't own, wearing a watch he probably couldn't pay off, surrounded by a life he had constructed entirely out of other people's accomplishments. And for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the woman who wasn't enough. I felt something I hadn't expected to feel at all. I felt sorry for him. "Marcus," I said calmly, "you left me because you said I didn't match your ambition. You told me I would spend the rest of my life regretting losing you." I paused, letting the words find their weight. "I want you to know something. That telehealth program I started after you left, the one you probably never heard about because you were too busy pretending to be someone you're not, it's now in 200 hospitals across 14 states. Last year, we provided care to over 40,000 children in communities that had nothing before. I built a company, Marcus, a real one, not a leased car and a borrowed mansion. Something real, something that actually helps people." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at me like I had spoken a language he didn't understand. Kendall looked at me with an expression I can only describe as quiet admiration. "I didn't come here to prove anything to you," I continued. "I came here because I thought I needed to close a chapter. But I think you just closed it for me." I took a step back from the door. "Good luck, Marcus. I mean that sincerely, because you're going to need it." I turned and walked back down the stone path to my Honda. Behind me, I heard Kendall's voice, steady and final. "I want you out by the end of the month." I got in my car and sat there for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel. The fountain in the circular driveway sparkled in the afternoon sun. The house was beautiful, I'll give it that. The beauty built on lies has a way of crumbling. And Marcus had been building on sand his entire life. I drove home to my small apartment, the one with the creaky front door and the neighbor who always left cookies on my doorstep. I changed into my scrubs, made a cup of tea, and sat on my couch in the quiet. For the first time in 5 years, the stones in my chest were gone. All of them. The weeks that followed were strange and clarifying. Kendall reached out to me, which I hadn't expected. She sent a short, honest message saying she had filed the divorce papers the following Monday. She thanked me for being gracious. She said meeting me helped her see clearly what she had been refusing to look at for years. We met for coffee a month later, 2 women who had been hurt by the same man, sitting across from each other at a small table, talking honestly about the wreckage he had left behind. Kendall told me she had inherited the house and a modest trust from her father. Marcus had known about the money before they started dating. He had targeted her the same way a con artist targets a mark, with charm and promises and the illusion of partnership. She had been so lonely after losing her father that she didn't see it until it was too late. Marcus, I heard, did not land gracefully. Without Kendall's house and money propping up his image, the facade collapsed almost overnight. His office lease expired, and he couldn't renew it. The car went back to the dealership. He moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side of town and started posting motivational quotes on social media about starting fresh and trusting the process. He reached out to me twice more, once to apologize, once to ask if I knew anyone hiring in medical sales. I didn't respond to either message. I don't hate Marcus. I did for a long time. I hated him for leaving. I hated him for the things he said. I hated him for not being there when I lost the baby. But hate is heavy, and I had carried enough weight for one lifetime. I let it go the day I walked away from that mansion, and I haven't picked it back up since. My company is thriving. We expanded into maternal health last year, and we're piloting a mental health program for adolescents in underserved schools. I hired Clara as our community outreach director. I still work shifts at the hospital when I can because those kids need me and I need them. The work keeps me honest. It keeps me grounded. It reminds me every single day that worth isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by what you give. About 6 months after that day at the mansion, I was going through a box of old things from my mother's garage. At the bottom, underneath photo albums and old report cards, I found a birthday card she had written me when I turned 18. I had never opened it. I don't know why. Maybe I wasn't ready. I opened it that night, sitting on my couch with a cup of tea, and read her words. "Naomi, the world is going to try to tell you who you are. People will try to make you smaller so they can feel bigger. Don't let them. Your heart is your compass, and it has never pointed you in the wrong direction. Trust it. Trust yourself." and never, ever let someone else's opinion become your truth. I love you more than the whole sky, Mom. I sat there holding that card for a long time, reading her words over and over until they became part of me. I spent 5 years letting one man's cruelty define how I saw myself. I believed him when he said I wasn't enough. I believed him when he said I lacked ambition. I measured my life against his lies and thought I was falling short. But the truth was, I was building something real the entire time, something honest and meaningful and mine. I just couldn't see it because I was looking through his eyes instead of my own. If you're hearing this right now and you feel like the world has written you off, if someone you loved made you believe you were too small, too ordinary, too broken to matter, I need you to hear me clearly. They were wrong. You are not what they said you are. You are not the worst thing someone made you feel. You are the work you put in when no one is clapping. You are the kindness you give when no one is watching. You are enough, exactly as you are, right now, today. Your moment is coming, and when it arrives, I hope you're still standing as the person who deserved it all along. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own strength, I would truly appreciate it if you hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done in Naomi's shoes. I read every single comment, and I love hearing from you. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell so you never miss another story. We post videos every day filled with emotional, powerful, and inspiring stories just like this one. Thank you for being part of this community. I'll see you in the next one.